You already know it is not working. You have known for a while. The job drains you. The relationship leaves you feeling invisible. The version of yourself you perform every day no longer fits who you actually are. And yet you stay. You find reasons to wait. You tell yourself it is not the right time, that things might improve, that at least you know what you are dealing with here. And somewhere beneath all of that, there is a quieter, more uncomfortable truth. The pain you are in feels, in some strange way, safer than the freedom you cannot yet see. This is not a personal failing. It is one of the most deeply human experiences there is. And understanding why it happens, really understanding it, not just being told to push through it, might be the most useful thing you do today. Let us begin with the mind itself. The brain is at its core a prediction machine. Its primary job is not to make you happy. It is to keep you alive by anticipating what comes next. And the way it does that is by learning patterns. When something happens repeatedly, even something painful, the brain begins to map it. It learns the shape of it, the rhythm of it, the edges of it. And once it has that map, it treats the familiar thing as known territory. Known territory, to the nervous system, registers as survivable. You have survived it before. You are surviving it now. The brain can work with that. The unknown, by contrast, has no map. And to a nervous system that is trying to protect you, the unmapped is not neutral. It is potentially dangerous. This is one reason why change anxiety can feel so physical. The tightening in the chest, the restlessness, the low hum of dread. The body is not being irrational. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is flagging the unfamiliar as something to approach with caution. The difficulty is that this protective mechanism does not distinguish between a genuinely dangerous unknown and a simply unfamiliar one. It treats the fear of starting over with the same seriousness it might treat a real threat. So the mind, trying to be helpful, keeps pulling you back toward what it already knows, even when what it already knows is hurting you. There is a second layer to this, and it is worth sitting with. When we have been in a painful situation for a long time, we do not just learn to tolerate it, we begin to organize our identity around it. The difficult relationship becomes part of how we understand ourselves. The unfulfilling career becomes part of how we explain our days. The familiar struggle becomes, quietly, part of who we are. And this means that leaving it is not simply a practical decision. It is, in a very real sense, a kind of loss of self. Not the self you want to be, perhaps, but the self you have learned to be. And grief, even for a self we are glad to leave behind, is still grief. This is why letting go is so rarely as simple as it sounds. It is not just about releasing a situation. It is about releasing a version of yourself that was built around that situation. That takes time, it takes courage, and it takes a willingness to sit in the in-between. The space where the old self has gone and the new one has not yet arrived. Philosophers have long been drawn to this threshold. There is a way of thinking about human existence that recognizes the weight of what one writer called the dizziness of freedom, the vertigo that comes not from being trapped, but from realizing you are not. When the walls of a familiar situation fall away, what remains is open space. And open space, for many of us, is not immediately experienced as liberation. It is experienced as exposure, as groundlessness, as a kind of terrifying responsibility for what comes next. This is not weakness. It is the honest experience of freedom before we have learned to inhabit it. Consider what this looks like in ordinary life. Someone stays in a job they find meaningless for years, not because they cannot imagine leaving, but because leaving would mean confronting the question of what they actually want. And that question feels enormous. Someone remains in a friendship that has become one-sided, not because they do not see it, but because ending it would mean sitting with the loneliness of the gap it leaves, and they are not sure they can bear that. Someone keeps returning to the same emotional patterns in relationships, not because they enjoy the pain, but because the pattern is familiar, and familiarity has come to feel like safety. In each of these cases, the familiar pain is not chosen because it is good. It is chosen because it is known. And the uncertain freedom, the job that might suit them, the friendships that might nourish them, the relationship that might actually see them, remains unchosen not because it is impossible, but because it is invisible. You cannot move towards something you cannot yet picture. This is where the work begins. Not in forcing yourself to leap before you are ready, but in gently, honestly expanding what you can imagine. One useful frame is this. Rather than asking yourself what you want your life to look like in 5 years, a question that can feel paralyzing when you are stuck, ask yourself what a slightly less painful version of today might look like. What is one small thing that would feel more like you? What is one boundary you have been afraid to draw? What is one conversation you have been postponing? Change rarely arrives as a single dramatic moment. It tends to arrive as a series of small, honest choices, each one building a little more trust between you and your own instincts. It also helps to name the grief honestly. If you are leaving something, even something that was not good for you, you are allowed to mourn it. You are allowed to miss the certainty, even if the certainty was painful. Acknowledging that loss does not mean you made the wrong choice. It means you are human, and that the life you lived, even the difficult parts of it, mattered to you. There is also something worth saying about hope, not as a vague optimism, but as a practical orientation. Hope, in its most grounded form, is not the belief that everything will definitely be fine. It is the willingness to act as though the future is worth moving toward, even when you cannot see it clearly. It is what allows a person to take the first uncertain step without needing a guarantee. And it is something that can be cultivated quietly by paying attention to the moments when the unfamiliar turned out to be survivable, even, eventually, good. You have done that before, more times than you probably give yourself credit for. There were other thresholds you stood at, other unknowns you walked into, other versions of yourself you had to leave behind. And you are here. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, quite a lot. The fear of change is not a sign that you are broken or cowardly or too damaged to move forward. It is a sign that you are a person who has learned, quite reasonably, to be careful. The task is not to eliminate that carefulness. It is to gently remind yourself that carefulness and paralysis are not the same thing. That knowing the risks is not the same as being unable to move. That the pain you are familiar with was never actually safe, it was simply known. And the life on the other side of it? It is unknown, yes. Uncertain, yes. But it is also unwritten. And that means it still belongs entirely to you. If this video gave you something to think about, consider subscribing to Inside the Labyrinth. We explore these questions every week with the same care and honesty. And if there is someone in your life who might need to hear this today, perhaps share it with them quietly. And if this spoke to a part of you that rarely gets heard, stay with that feeling for a moment. You are not broken because you feel deeply. You are only beginning to understand yourself. Subscribe to Inside the Labyrinth for more reflections on the hidden patterns of the human mind.